Here she is, and this isn't her house, but this is Betty on her 85th birthday. She's living very independently with only family support. She has all of her own teeth, something that she is incredibly proud of. She has metastasised breast cancer and is classed as terminal and has been for the last 2 years. Betty's been admitted to hospital several times, and in one of these cases we had 3 failings with her mouth care. Her mouth care products went missing, her mouth was left very sore, and her very dry mouth got missed. So I can explain a little bit about this. Betty, being aware she was becoming frail, was very independent and loved to have her own products with her, so she always had a bag ready and packed for when she goes into hospital, and it was called her red bag. So Betty gets one of her emergency admissions, which is a pulmonary embolism. After a few days, Betty is discharged from hospital and returns back to her home, but she's still slightly unwell and doesn't get a chance to refresh all the products that are in her red bag. So a few days later, Betty is admitted back into hospital with a cerebral bleed. After several days, it became apparent that Betty was starting to understand, because all of a sudden she joined in the family conversation, and the very first thing she said was, "I haven't got a toothbrush." So Betty had had those 5 days in hospital with something that was very important to her teeth. Nobody had looked in her mouth and nobody had brushed her teeth. She was one of that generation that didn't really like to make a fuss, but had mentioned it a couple of times and was told to use a mouthwash. She was also told to suck ice cubes, which was difficult because there was no ice cubes on the ward, and the mouthwash really stung her. So Betty just put up with this, but it really impacted her eating, and she was, with her disease, also losing weight, so now unable to eat as well. Betty's mouth was really dry, and that was something that she'd been suffering from a while, but it had worsened, and she was really finding it difficult to swallow her tablets. She was feeling really anxious because she felt like she was choking. It would trigger episodes of coughing, so every time she tried to talk, she would often end up in a coughing fit. She had a horrible metallic taste in her mouth, and her mouth was very sore. So at this stage, we intervened with our mouth care product and started to provide Betty with lots of the products that we were at this stage trialling in our hospital. After this discharge, Betty was moved on to the palliative care team, and the palliative care team visited her at home. They were really supportive and helped and supported her with her mouth care, and Betty even asked for an electric toothbrush for her Christmas present that year. In March 2016, Betty was moved into the hospice to restabilise her medication. The hospice were really supportive and listened to the families concerned and carried out regular mouth care and supported Betty as much as possible, but Betty did pass away peacefully, surrounded by her family. So Betty leaves our story, but she does leave a legacy, and the legacy is Mouth Care Matters was so important, because if Betty had have had mouth care in the hospital she was in, many of her symptoms would have been addressed earlier. Betty might have not suffered from such a dry mouth. There are so many Bettys out there who are not getting the support that they need during their hospital stays. The loss of Betty to our project was massive, but the loss to me personally was even more, because Betty is my mum.